we do have a lot to complain about, but
Yeah.
we have so much to be thankful for because Jessica Lanyadoo, our number one favorite astrologer, yes, psychic medium, and just incredible podcaster, is here with us in the house tonight. This is a dream come true for those of us who have relied on her wisdom for to get us through COVID, through so many things. Thank you to everyone here masking because COVID is not over, and that is one of the things that we really appreciate about Jessica is also all of the wisdom around that and the care and community care that she has provided. So I think most everybody knows that Jessica is the popular host of Ghost of a Podcast and the author of Astrology for Real Relationships, which is on sale here. She also has a brand new audiobook, Meditations for Your Sign. She is also the creator of the astrology pro tool, Astrology for Days. So you can learn a lot more at her Patreon, which is just jessica.lanyadoo. And you can also check out lovelanyadoo.com. So we are going to let y'all get right into it. We're going to hear from Jessica. There will be an opportunity to ask questions for folks who are physically in the room with us, as well as online. For our online folks, drop your questions in the chat. For our in-person folks, the only important thing to know is that I have to bring you a microphone. So raise your hand, whether you're back there, like wave at me, get my attention. Folks in here, we will try and get as many questions as we can. Without further ado, please put your hands together one more time for Jessica.
That's nice. Thanks. Thanks everyone. And thanks for that. I'm so happy to be here and here, I'm not gonna say anything about my books, whatever. If you like them, get them. If you don't, it's cool. I'm not mad at you. But I do want to talk for a minute about the astrology of 2025. Um, there's I am sure you can feel it. Like things are changing. Something's shifted. And that feeling, oh, it was so cinematic. I was like, is that in my mind? I don't know. It felt like emo, right? It was like the vibe. Okay. It was probably we needed to laugh because otherwise we're all gonna freak out. But um the astrology of this year, and to be frank, of the coming years, is it is concerning. It is. Oh, maybe the microphone doesn't like it when I talk negative. Oh well. So okay, it is concerning, and I want to just name, and it's not all bad, right? It's not all bad, but it is a lot, and that feeling that I know so many of us are having, that something big is shifting, that something is coming, and it's like, I mean, we can look to LA, we can look to Richmond, we can look to lots of different places outside of this country, right? But the astrology of 2025 is all about things shifting, right? It's all about the outer planets moving into new signs. Now, Pluto just moved into Aquarius officially, and this is going to be our first year in 250 years with Pluto in Aquarius. And it'll stay there until 2044. But Jupiter moves into Cancer in June, which there's a lot of things to be said about it. And one of them is a kind of increase in nationalism globally. And on a more personal level, a kind of expansion of our feelings of home and safety. Expansion of feelings is not good and it's not bad. It's an expansion of feelings, all right? Saturn will move into Aries in May, and Neptune will move into Aries in March. And these two planets being in the same sign of Aries at the same time is monumental. It's really, really big. I'm going to say more about that in a moment. Uranus moves into Gemini in July through September of this year, of 2025. And then from April of 2026 onwards, it'll be in Gemini. And when Uranus moves into Gemini, we've had really big things happen. The Civil War, the American Revolution, and I think there was another one. Oh, there is definitely another one, but well, just trust me, it's not great. When Uranus moves into Gemini, it stimulates the nervous system. It promotes change. And like pew, 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 like change all over the place, like in all the directions. And there's, again, a lot of really good and a lot of really challenging things with it, but it's revolutionary inherently. It's a time of revolt and revolution inside of you, inside of us as a collective, inside of our friends and our not friends, right? And so this energy is air energy. We're talking about, other than Jupiter and Cancer, everything's in fire and air. And I don't know if you've ever seen, I think we all have now with LA, right? What happens with air and fire? It fucking spreads indiscriminately. It jumps. And because of this, I don't know about you, but the energy that I'm feeling is just like, it feels jumpy. It feels kind of like nervous system-y. It feels like quick to jump around. And something that I have been thinking about for a long time, looking at Neptune and Saturn and Aries, is the topic of agency. How can you identify your choices? The fact that you have choices. How can you practice making choices? Because when we're feeling activated, especially around fear, we tend to feel helpless or hopeless, or we go the other direction and we just act, just impulsively act without kind of consideration. I did a webinar with Dean Spade on the astrology of 2025, and what really kind of emerged from that conversation was this theme of living on purpose, living with purpose. And it's kind of like a little mantra in my head. When I'm not thinking about being a frog being slowly boiled, isn't that a thing? Yeah, it's terrible. When I'm not thinking about that, I'm thinking about living on purpose and with purpose. And Aries, where Saturn and Neptune both will be this year, is all about purpose. It's about agency. It's about intention and motivation. And so much of this time, which is so revolutionary and so chaotic, is requiring that each of us as individuals and all of us as communities practice being intentional about our motivations. Practice touching in with, what is it that I'm feeling? And instead of like, what should I do? Which is what most of us do, right? Like, I feel bad. What should I do? That's not going to help. And I'm sure you've already noticed it's like an anxiety response. It doesn't help. Instead, what we're meant to do is be like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Can I actually like stay touched in with what I'm feeling? And as a practice from there, can you make choices? The next best choices, not the best choices, like the choices that work in this. Oh, sorry, that was me. The choices that work in this moment. And, you know, I was thinking about, should I share this? Should I not share this? But we're close friends now, so I feel like I'm going to share. There's this game called the Transformation Game. If you're on my Patreon, then you know I've talked about it. It's this like board game that some hippies created in the 70s, and they would travel around with people, like to different communities, and like play it with people, and you can buy it. It's a board game, but it's basically an interactive tarot reading. And so you pick a topic that you want to work on, and then you start off, I think, like at the physical level, and you work out your issue on the physical level, and you graduate mental, emotional, spiritual. And back in 2020, when I was playing it, I played every New Year's because I am that hippie. In 2020, when I played it with my partner, I got a card I didn't even know existed. The card said, "Everyone's game is over. World calamity has hit." Yeah. And we were like, oh no, what does that mean? Oh no, what does that mean? And then we found out very quickly precisely what it meant. And when we played it this year, we got everybody goes directly to a depression life square. They stick you on depression in the game because of world events. And I thought, okay, all right, it's not a world calamity that everyone's game is over. That's an improvement. But it kind of affirms something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is, how do we process our pain and our grief and our fear? And again, I think what keeps on coming up for me, which is not something I'm personally good at, I'm guessing very few of us are good at this, but how can you adapt your insides when you can't control your outsides? You know, how can you practice being like, okay, I feel anxious and I have all of these actual problems materially around me. And I'm not going to feel better until I am better, until things are better. And the problem with that, when we are living through this kind of really dramatic, tumultuous times, is that things might not be better. And that is real. And we still have to show up for ourselves and for the people in our lives and our communities. We have to show up for our ancestors and those who come after us. We have to show up. And that includes not showing up. I want to make space for, like, you don't show up every day. That's not realistic. Don't be perfect. Nobody's looking for that. But what I struggle with, and I know most people do, is how to stay present when the last thing I want to do is stay present. So many of the questions that I get for the podcast are questions from people who are just like, okay, this is the situation that I'm in, but I'm convinced that it means that I'm always going to be in this situation for the rest of my life. But I am convinced that it means much worse things about me and who I've been or who I'm going to be if I'm in this. And I want to say, life is not fair and it's not symmetrical. It's just not. It is wild and unpredictable. And also we have astrology. And astrology gives us a sense of the weather forecast, which this morning, my weather forecast told me there was a 35% chance that it'd be snowing in Atlanta tomorrow. And now it says that it won't snow. Weather forecasts are, they're not perfect, is what I'm saying. Okay. Like, you don't want to get too attached to them. Because I was like, it's gonna snow. I don't think it will. But the thing about astrology is that if we can hold it lightly enough so that it doesn't activate your nervous system in such a way that now you're living in the future where things are out of your control. They're so out of your control. Your what ifs may be worse, and they may actually not be as bad as the future. I don't know. Sometimes I know, but it's not helpful to know, is the point. So I want to just throw these questions for your consideration. Okay. When you are gripped with fear, how do you hold on to that? Me personally, I have a tendency to grow both hands tight as I can. But do you have tools to redirect? Redirect from rumination, from gripping your fears too tightly? What resources do you have? Because when we are in a state of anxiety or fear or depression or whatever it is, we tend to forget our resources. So to ask yourself that as a practice, and when loved ones are going through things, I don't know about you, I've got friends in LA, there's the world is, when you have friends going through things, holding space for how they're feeling without being in a rush to fix it for them or to show them something positive. Let people be in their negative. Make it normal to bear witness to other people's grief. Because by doing that, we make space. And that space allows each of us as individuals and all of us as communities to identify our agency. And again, when we can perceive our choices, it's easier to make use of them. Now, another thing I want to invite you to consider is when you are in times of need, do you have people you can reach out to? Have you talked to them about hey, if I'm having a mental health day, can I text you this emoji and you just know to ask me a question or call me on the phone or whatever it is that people do, I don't know, right? To have that. And then similarly, how can you make yourself available to other people, whether it's people in your life, people in your community, online, in meet space, all of it. It's all relevant. Not just because it is humane and wonderful to help people, but it actually helps you too. To be of support to others, it is expansive for you. And that's just, it is part of where we need to go, right? This is a period that will call for radical acts of kindness, offline, online, whether or not people are looking. And within that, we need critical thinking. And For me, this includes active listening. And I don't feel like we've gone in a great direction with listening in the world. We're not great at it anymore. We have really weird ways of listening to each other and to ourselves. And again, a lot of it is going too quick to like, what am I supposed to do? Is this a bad thing or a good thing? You know, do I like it? Do I not like it? Being able to rest and digest is power. It is resourcing. And because we are in the throes of air and fire, I want to again kind of invite you to think about balance. And balance, not like this kind of a balance, like, you know, this hand, that hand kind of balance, but spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, right? So, on the spiritual level, can you connect with your ancestors, with nature, with your guides, with God, whatever resonates for you? It doesn't have to be all the things. When you are feeling off, you just off. Instead of going, what do I do? First check in. Okay, have I connected? For me, for years, there was this one beach that I had gone to that I was like, oh, this place. When I remember to connect, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back. I'm back. Do you have a tree? You know, like it doesn't have to be too fancy. On the emotional level, which I am of the mind is the most challenging level and the one we pay the least amount of attention to. On the emotional level, there's digest and rest, but I want to add in the middle nurture. Digest, nurture, and rest. How can you nurture yourself? How can you create space to nurture others? And this is again why I'm encouraging you to invite people to be okay with having their bad day or their grief. And there's a difference between that and ruminating and lamenting and getting stuck, right? Digesting means there's movement. We've all digested, right? We know that there's movement in that. On the mental level, to ask yourself, am I thinking critically about this? So my first class on feminism taught me that thinking critically is thinking about thinking while thinking. And depending where your Uranus is in relationship to your Mercury, that may or may not be your jam. But there are ways of thinking critically, you know, right? There are ways of thinking critically based on your nature, and those are really important to nurture, especially because of the rise of AI. And we all know what's happening on our social media platforms. It's bananas. Now, the other thing is actively listening. Actively listening is not just listening to the words that are said so that you can figure out what to say or what to do, how to react, how to respond. That's cool, but it's not actively listening. It's listening to what's being said, how it's being said. It's listening with your body and not just with however you're taking in the data. On the physical level, it's about staying present. What can I do now? So you can get worried about what's going to happen after, I don't know, January 20th. That's just a random date in my mind. Just randomly. You can focus on that, right? You can, I mean, I think all of us have probably been like, what am I going to do? What could happen? And there's a value in that, but it is this, and we do it this, right? And so, and if you're listening, I said small fingers and big fingers, right? So what can you do now to improve your conditions now? What are your conditions now? Because the future will come very soon, and then it will be your present. So when we honor the present, we're making better use of all of our skills. And the truth of the matter is, I'm a psychic, I'm an astrologer. I don't fucking know what's going to happen. Oh, it doesn't like it when I'm too emphatic. I'm sorry. But we don't know. Even when we look back and we realize we were right, we don't know because we're meant to be in the present. When we use all this woo stuff that I love so much to stay in our heads and to project into the future, we're not actually evolving spiritually. We're not helping, you know? And so on the physical level, to check in and make sure, are your actions reflecting your priorities? Because when they're not, Okay, there's clear instruction on what to do from there, always. And are you connecting to this earth? Are you connecting to this planet that you live on? Being able to reflect on these questions and adapt to make it work for you. It can help you to go on an anxiety scale, like when you're at a 7, can help you go down to a 6. And to me, that is a miraculous experience, right? Like to bring you down enough so that you can resource yourself, so that you can show up for yourself and then hopefully for others as is appropriate, right? Now, I could genuinely talk to you guys for like an hour more about all of this, but I love answering questions. And I don't know how we're doing on time. I guess you can let me know, Yar. But I would love to invite questions so that I can, talk to you about what you want to hear about, basically.
So we're going to encourage our, it also doesn't like when I'm too emphatic. We're going to encourage our online folks to keep putting their questions in the chat. I see we got a few. We're going to start with anybody who is physically here with us. And again, I'm going to turn this down. I know.
It's vibing.
It's because there are so many of us in here, which is lovely. It's like, it's a lot. Does anybody want to kick us off? Yep. Okay. I'm going to pass this to you.
Feel it in my chest.
Power is strong.
Yeah.
Huge fan. Thank you so much for coming. This is time sensitive to the Cancer full moon tomorrow. I'm a Virgo North Node, so this is a little bit my neurotic probably part of me talking about charging crystals around the full moon.
Great question.
I think you said that the full moon is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, give or take, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I also understand that the full moon energy is a couple of days plus or minus. When should I charge my crystals tomorrow?
Okay, I'm going to answer 2 questions for you. The first one is, it's not your North Node in Virgo that makes you neurotic about it. It's your South Node in Pisces that makes you be like, all the boundaries are going to bleed into each other if I don't, So once you have the ritual, your North Node in Virgo will be able to better apply consistently the rules, Virgo. Okay. First of all, full moons, you clear your crystals on a full moon. You release. It's about letting go. It's about letting go. So full moons are always for releasing. So what you're doing is you're clearing your crystals, okay? There's a couple crystals that don't need to be cleared, but most of them do. When I'm doing that, I always make sure the crystals are out at the moment of exactitude, because we're talking vibes as well as light, right? So if it's overcast day, and let's say it's at, high noon that the moon is full, does it still work? Yeah, it still works because it's vibes. So I would put your gemstones out for the moment of exactitude, which is why I always share that moment. And then if you're trying to charge your crystals, you do it under the new moon. When the sun and the moon are sitting right on top of each other, that's the energy of light. So it's not like we're not seeing it as much visually, but it is the energy of light that you want to bring to your crystals.
Is that down? Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you. So we have an online question that's very specific, but also perhaps general. Will we have an election in 2026?
That's interesting. I have not. Again, for me, my motivation is to deal with what's present here and now. So am I concerned about what's going to happen in 2026? Fuck yeah. But hey, listen, all the things that would need to happen to put us in a position where there's going to be an election, I got a lot of other fish to fry before that happens. So again, this is where I come back to, we can speculate, and astrologers are great at speculating what will happen next. And what I've come to at this point of my practice is it can be a distraction, because what's happening now, there's so much that needs our attention and care. So not to make you feel bad about asking that question, you are not alone in asking that question. It's just, I say let's tend to the now. And as soon as that becomes a hot button issue, I will talk about it obsessively. Okay. But not today. Yeah.
We have kind of a follow-up, more or less. A fellow Canadian says, I'm very worried about conservatives getting a majority and also rightward swings globally. anything we should be watching out for, expecting, asking as a queer, non-binary human?
So, I mean, we can be really concerned in the present, and also, so this is again something I very lightly touched on in my year ahead talk. When looking at the chart of Canada as a specific example, a bunch of nations have Pluto transits coming up in March. That's not good news, my friends. It's not what you want to hear. So Pluto is going to start opposing Canada's Mercury, which indicates struggles with a neighbor, power struggles with a neighbor. Now, listen, it's not the only thing it indicates, but having a power struggle with this neighbor is not the worst thing in terms of the implications of having a conservative versus liberal government in Canada. Does that make sense the way I've said it? It indicates that it's not like a friendo Trump. But I am not making any kind of meaningful predictions about this because I can't do it without being in anxiety. Can any of you think about what comes next without being in anxiety? No, because it's terrifying. So again, I'm best resourced in the present. And I want to, as much as possible, encourage you to protect yourself in the present based on all the things you know in the present without cycling. Like there will be a new premiere and that will happen. And today it's not the thing that we're dealing with. Sorry if that's an annoying answer, but I'm good at those.
Online folks. All right, I'm going to ask folks who are in the back of the room if you're able to come forward. That would be great. If you can't, I'll come as close as I can.
Hi. You brought up purpose.
Yes.
As a theme for this year. What tools or steps do you recommend we go through to further explore what our purpose is in this new context?
I love that question. So Neptune in Aries. Neptune is about our highest values and ideals, right? They're about our aspirations and our spiritual convictions. Saturn is so material. Saturn is what you do, it's your obligations, your responsibilities, and it's your internal structure as a human being. No big deal. And so when we think about purpose, right, in the context of Neptune and Saturn being in Aries, it's about how can your highest ideals, your spiritual convictions, be translated into your internal structure, translated into the way you structure your life. Finding purpose might look like being like, okay, my job, I don't like it, does not reflect my purpose. And practicing kindness or, acts of rebellion do line up with my sense of purpose. How can I seize opportunities day to day, month to month, whatever it is, to practice those things, to recognize that that fills me up and therefore I'm going to practice it, right? I think that people have this idea that purpose or living in purpose, I think we get perfectionistic about it and we get like in our heads about it. We all struggle with futility. And even, like I'm in my dream job. I thank you everybody for supporting me being in my dream job. I am in my dream job and I question it. And there's nobody who has a perfect handle on this. So part of also being in purpose is holding space within that for the kind of ebbs and flows and twists and turns of that process. Instead of needing to like find it, be there, stay there. Because that's not realistic, especially with Neptune in Aries. With Neptune in Aries, it's shifting sands on fire. No big deal, right? It's really intense. So being able to practice being like, okay, so how do I access that feeling of purpose, that intention of purpose, can be easier to achieve than being like, what is my purpose? Which is a question I've gotten countless times over the course of my career. What is my purpose? Your purpose is to be alive. Honestly, well, I don't know what your purpose is beyond that. We don't have a singular purpose. We have values, we have a sense of motivation, and that will evolve with time and circumstance. And again, try to notice how firmly or how lightly you hold things, because the more tightly you hold that question, the further it will feel from you. I'm sure we've all experienced that. Too much pressure creates this friction that becomes the central focus. So holding it lightly empowers you to, again, access agency. You know, today I don't know what my purpose is, but I do know that I actually value whatever, like laughing. So I'm going to make everyone laugh that I can make laugh, or whatever. You know what I mean? Oh, okay. I'm so glad. That's nice. Okay, good. Okay, so I answered that question.
These are sort of similar, so just you may have just a slight different take on it. And I'm going to tie two together. One is I've had a slow start to the year, low motivation, etc. Any advice to get going? And then a slightly more specific one as I enter my first Saturn return in Aries, second house this year. I just lost my job. Any advice? I've got a fresh start this full moon.
Well, shit. So fresh starts and full moons are not BFFs, because full moons are really about releasing. So releasing attachment or identity with something could be a better move. But in terms of having a Saturn, if you've got Saturn in the second house, my friends, Saturn in the second house, yeah, money is going to be an issue. Saturn in the second house gives you lessons with making money and spending it, holding on to it, resourcing it. If it's in the eighth house, it's more other people's money. It's like you may have money, but it's never liquid or something. The thing about having Saturn in the second is it does teach you to fully take responsibility and accountability for what you value. And for the person who's having a slow start, I mean, okay, raise your hand if you're not having a slow start to this year.
Oh, wait, no.
Oh, okay. You thought I was going somewhere else. You thought, okay. There's one person, there's a couple people. Most people did not raise their hand. The energy is BANANAS. I've been told by my partner that I spell that too much, but I just think it's BANANAS. So all to say, yeah, the energy is a lot. And this idea that it's a new year and we should start anew, what fucking idea is that? I don't know, that maybe that's useful. And also maybe it's not. If the energy isn't there, then you don't need to force it. Unless, of course, you need to force it, in which case you make the best next choices. Not the best choices, the best next choices. So that's my hot take.
Do you have any advice about how we can connect better to our emotions, like some practices or rituals to help?
Connecting to the emotions is not as hard as receiving the emotions. So if I'm connecting, okay, this might be noisy, sorry. I'm connecting to the microphone, okay? I grasped it. I reached out and I touched it. If I'm receiving my emotions, I'm getting still, I'm getting present, and I'm opening up. It's a different practice. And so practicing receiving emotions means getting out of your head. And that's really likely what your question is about, is how to get out of your head. And again, it's air and fire right now. So a lot of us are really in our head. Fear does that, like nervous system activation. There's not a universal one size fits all. Hopefully some of the questions and prompts that I gave can help to slow down so that you can start to kind of do that rest, nourish, digest, or whatever works for you. So that's the best quick answer I can give.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna come. We still have a bunch online, but I'm coming around.
What advice would you give?
Hi.
What advice would you give, I guess, a listener that's calling in or writing in that's having a lot of transits going on with Neptune, Pluto? What other one do I have going? I think my friend. I think those are the main two.
Neptune and Pluto?
Yeah,
at the same time?
Yeah,
it's so chill. Everything's fine. So here's the thing about astrology is that a lot of times we're going through contradicting transits. One will be let go, and the other one's you got to fix it, go, right? And that's life. That's why sometimes you're flirting your butt off and all your friends love you, but you're kind of lonely and depressed. Different transits happening at the same time that can contradict each other. So if you're going through, and it depends on the transits, right? Like you might be seeing that you're going through these transits, but they might all be sextiles, in which case, don't worry about it. Go to therapy or something. You know what I mean? And then they may all be conjunctions or oppositions or squares. And in that case, you're going to be a different person by the time they're done. And so the more willing you are to actively participate in letting go, because Pluto always wants us to let go. It's something I've shared this on my Patreon, but what I always do when I see a Pluto transit coming is I get rid of clothes. I have a lot of clothes, and I like, for all my sizes, I keep them in my, anyways. But the point is that I get rid of stuff because I have a hard time getting rid of things that I love, and Pluto wants you to get rid of stuff. So I'm like, okay, let me start the energy moving, right? So that I don't have to lose my best friend or my apartment or whatever it is. And so it's about engaging with the energy. If you're going through Neptune transits, all Neptune transits require boundaries. And if you use the www.net something to find out what to do with Neptune transits, you'll get a lot of confusing answers. And a lot of times, I've noticed astrology online is Neptune means get spiritual. No, it does not. It means get boundaried. Because the auric field becomes so porous during Neptune transits, especially the hard ones. And so you don't need to go out of your way to get spiritual. If you're the kind of person who knows you're going through a Neptune transit, you're already there, right? It's about getting boundaries on all the layers. And it's very hard to have boundaries if you are not emotionally present. And Neptune gets us scattered, right? So, yeah. Yes, my pleasure.
Any thoughts on astro connections to increasing housing unaffordability and scarcity? I'm in LA, but this is happening everywhere.
So reread the first part. Astral connections with what?
On astrological, I think this person means connections to increasing housing unaffordability and scarcity.
Well, it's unclear to me if this question is related to more energy work, right? And I am not good at teaching energy work. I do energy work, but I'm not great at teaching it. So I don't have any advice about that. Listen, with Neptune and Saturn and Uranus, what they're doing, housing is absolutely, you can feel it already and the transits haven't hit yet. Resources are feeling scarcer and scarcer, and we know that they're not scarce. We know that they're not scarce. So here's the question. The question is, will we build communities together? Will we follow through to build communities where we affirm that we are the majority? Will we have a revolution that brings us more housing, more resources, or not? And we all know what not looks like. We have versions of what not looks like, right? So I don't have a great answer other than mobilize together is the answer.
I wanted to say happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hello. My birthday is January 20th.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I make the best of it. And my sun and Mars is conjunct at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So I've been having Pluto. I think I'm on the third pass. Do you have any advice for a conjunction of Sun, Mars, and Pluto?
So Sun and Mars is in your birth chart, and then Pluto is by transit.
Yes. Yeah. My Pluto's in the 12th house.
That's
your eclipse last year.
Pluto is in your birth. Pluto's in the 12th house, or transiting Pluto's in the 12th house.
My Pluto is in the 12th house.
Okay, yes. But your Sun and Mars is not.
No, it's the third.
Okay.
In Capricorn.
Yeah. So first of all, you're at the end of the transit. It's almost done, right? Which is great. So you've lived through the vast majority of it already. When Pluto sits on top of Mars and the Sun, It's demanding, because Pluto is a bitch. It's demanding that you step into your power. It's demanding that you find a way to take, because it's at an anaretic degree of Capricorn, accountability for who you choose to be. So this theme of purpose probably really resonates with you, because Pluto has been just like pushing on your sense of purpose. And the thing that's tough about a Sun Mars conjunction natally is that the will and the ego they're just like intermingled. And so at times it can be hard to know what of your motivations to center and kind of how to proceed. And so a lot of times people who have this aspect can feel stuck a lot. Do you get that feeling of stuck?
Yeah. Spinning wheels.
Spinning wheels. There you go. Yeah. And that's because you're looking for the right thing to do. Capricorn. Yeah. Is it wrong? Is it right? Because if it's wrong, I'm a terrible person and I'm failing. And if it's right, that means I'm succeeding and I'm a good person. No, it doesn't. It's about, is it in alignment? Practice asking, is it in alignment? Mm-hmm. And if you can find that alignment, which is more solar than Mars, it'll be easier for you to take risks and be willing to fail. Failing is glorious. I fucking hate it, but it is so good for you. And having that aspect in your birth chart, having this transit going on, can teach you about your willingness or lack of willingness to fail, and how much of life we don't get to experience when we're not willing to fail.
I've definitely been feeling that flavor of feeling the flow since May, that I don't question it as much.
That's great. And Pluto transits change you as they're meant to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hi. Does anything in the energy of 2025 help to, or maybe can be used to support relationship transformation, especially if the relationship is not going well right now?
And you're talking about love life.
Love life.
Yeah, you are. Yes. Yeah, you are. Okay. 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 So here's the thing. There's so many things I want to say about that. So let me just first ask, do you have anything in any of the signs I named, like Aries, Gemini? Okay. Yeah, you do that. Okay. So I want to just take a moment before I answer your question to say I am a fan of divorce. I am such a fan of divorce. I am a fan of endings. And it's not that I enjoy them when they happen, or, I'm like, yay, you're breaking up. But it is so good to recognize when you have outgrown someone or something and to let them go. And you used words, but what I kind of heard, and please tell me if I heard it wrong, is, can I make this work even though it's absolutely not working? Yeah. And what are you willing to pay? Why are you willing to pay that? The pain of grief and of losing someone, it's fucking awful. But it's also baptismal. Like it is so important to be willing to let someone go when they are not a match anymore. And when somebody's not a match anymore, it's evidence of at least one of you having changed. I don't mean to psychic you, but I feel like you know which one of you has changed and which one of you has not. Yes. And it is sad, but letting someone go doesn't always mean breaking up. Letting someone go means releasing your attachment to who they were and what you expect of them, and leaving some space for them to emerge different. When we play our role differently, we leave space for the other person to play a different role as well. And they don't always do it. And then you need to go. So we're back to boundaries, because we're talking about Neptune, and we're talking about Neptune because Neptune is in this moment still in Pisces. We're also talking about, depending on your placements, could be Uranus messing with you, but people ask me similar questions to what you asked me for, obviously, a lot, right? How can I make this relationship work? And my first response is always the same. It's like, why should you make a relationship work that you are having to break yourself open to make work? And so I'm going to add one more thing to it, which is I believe in problems. Triple Capricorn, obviously, I'm a fan of problems. But I believe there are two different kinds of problems. There are the problems that are the same fucking shit you've done a million times before. They're your pattern, right? They are the thing that you keep on doing. And then there are the problems that you have with other people that are really just a reflection of your own problems with yourself. And when you work on those problems, they help you to become a better person, right? Those problems are the ones you want in your love life. The problems of like, I've been here before, every person I've dated, I've gone through the same bullshit. Why do I keep on choosing this person who keeps on doing this thing? That's your problem as much as it is theirs. And a lot of people have this idea, and the internet has taught me, twin flames is the term the internet has taught me that justifies why you would stay in a shitty relationship. Not a fan. Not a fan. I have one episode on twin flames where I'm like, I don't like it. Don't do it. Like, I'm like, if somebody's burning you up, walk away. You can have better sex with someone else, better love with someone else, better quality of life with someone else. And so if somebody challenges you to stay stuck in your old bullshit, it's not the right challenge. And if somebody's asking you to like grow into the best parts of yourself, that's a relationship worth fighting for. Now, that said, every relationship has bullshit and everybody is ridiculous and high maintenance and you know what I mean? Like everybody's annoying and all that stuff. So we want to hold space for all of it. But my instinct is that speaks to your question in your relationship now. Yeah. Good. And also, I really love and want your shirt.
We have time for just a few more, so I'm going to
Okay.
read a few more from our online folks, and maybe we'll take one or two more in the room. This person says, I'm curious about how much time per day you spend taking in news or media. You're so well informed, which I aim to be, but there is so much happening. It's difficult to stay informed and grounded in the present moment at the same time. Any tips?
That is a great question. I consume a lot of news. It's true. And I don't necessarily recommend it. Listen, I'm 50. Now I know last year I said I was 50. I lie about my age. I round up a lot. So next year you'll be like, she's 55. How did that happen? That's how it happens. I'm just telling you truthfully now. Okay. I lie about very little, but my age I do round up. Okay. So I'm 50. Would I watch a lot of news at 25? I did not. I did not read a lot. You know, it's okay to be at different stages of life. I happen to, at this stage of my life, between my priorities, my work, and honestly, fucking age, I do consume a great deal of news, and I don't recommend it for everyone. Does it sometimes mess up my nervous system? Absolutely. Do I do stupid things frequently? Yes. And some of those stupid things are consuming too much news. And yet I choose it because it is consistent with my values and it's important to me and to my work and to how I show up in the world. And so I want to say, having really reliable news sources that you have a kind of healthy relationship to is more important than staying on top of everything all at once, because you don't have to know all the latest breaking news all the time. And again, with AI and how the internet is changing so rapidly right now, I think I don't know, it's a fucking mess, basically, is what I want to say. So we need to rethink how we engage with the internet. Yeah.
Hi, Jessica. Nice to meet you. My question is, what advice would you give to someone who struggles with disassociation? I hate this world a little bit too much and want to leave. And when I was younger, I disassociated like out of my mind, and older, I kind of transferred to consciousness raising drugs. And so, with things kind of coming up, I would like to stay present. So yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about your question.
Okay.
Disassociation is a word, and I know what I mean when you say it, but I don't. Everybody means something a little different. So what do you really mean when you say that?
My body's here, but my mind is somewhere else. To give like an example, I remember like kind of like being a ghost of myself, and literally
being like,
So you're all the way out.
Yeah, and that was when I was younger, but like that's an example of like what it feels like.
And do you want to be associated? Yeah, I mean that's so me and anyone else can give you such great advice, but I think the first thing is, again, it's connecting to that purpose. Is what there's really good reasons to be checked out, and there's really good reasons to stay here. The thing that I like about being associated, other than the fact that I'm a fucking Capricorn, so like it's my thing, but is because you can. It's like if you're here, you can defend here. And I'm a big fan of defending, and that's maybe not a great spiritual motivation, but that is mine, right? So it's the first thing I would actually say to you is to work on cultivating an earnest desire, not a theoretical desire, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I need more.
Yeah, okay. You gotta really want it, because if you get here, I bet anyone here can attest to it sucks. That's the reason why you're disassociating, right? So it's about a willingness to be present even when it's hard, because it's so often hard and it's sad and it's frightening. And, it was just like, break up, it's good for you. Like, it's hard. And I think practicing staying emotionally present on purpose when things are hard will give you like the cultivation of chops for wanting, truly authentically wanting, not theoretically wanting to be associated, or be present, right? Because the reason why I asked about the word disassociation is because it's a psychological word and it's not an astrology word, right? And it has like a lot of meanings. Yeah. And there are a lot of trauma-based reasons why a person would disassociate. And to just be like, I'm going to be present and I'm just going to force myself to sit in my meat suit and just be here for everything, that might be a bad goal in this moment. There might be ways of practicing titrating, like practicing, if you're used to being like 100% out, practicing what does it feel like to like bring 5% of my spirit into my meat suit and letting it like just dip your toe. Like, I don't like to jump into cold water. I know people like to jump into cold water. I think that's ridiculous. I don't want it to be cold. It's terrible. So, I literally will stick a finger in it and that's all I can tolerate. So maybe that's you. Maybe that's what you want to practice doing, is just tolerating a fingertip into the icy cold water of reality, and practice sitting with it. And then maybe, eventually your hands, and like, instead of being like going from disassociated to present, because you have to have really good reasons why, right? And I think that it's important with all wellness stuff to not be too one size fits all, right? Yeah. And I think we get that way. And you kind of like very quietly mentioned consciousness raising drugs, right? And I talk about consciousness raising drugs on the podcast all the damn time. And here's the thing. When we don't have time to integrate and digest whatever substance you're imbibing, then it quickly shifts out of consciousness raising and just drug use. TBH, people hate it when I say that. The first time I ever gave a talk to other astrologers on on addiction and stuff, it was the worst received talk I've ever given. It was just like a lot of people in there being like, don't fucking talk about my weed. Like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And I respect that. And also we can like practice holding accountability you can practice holding accountability to yourself and still do the thing that is maybe not the most accountable thing. But practicing honesty shifts things. And if you listen to the readings that I do, a lot of times what happens is I'm just present and name things. And it's radical for people to just have it named, right? So name it for yourself. I'm doing this because it's fun. I'm doing this because it takes me out, and not because it's raising my consciousness. Or maybe it's raising my consciousness like 1% of the time, and I'm in it, whatever amount. And practice, again, being more honest with yourself and tolerating how that feels. That's, again, not giving you a full-on reading. That's the best I can. So I hope that helps.
Can I ask one more question? I have one more question. Sorry to hog the mic. But what advice would you give to wanting to create community but not having a good like success rate at personal relationships of like staying and being
Of you staying or them staying?
them staying.
So in a way, you're asking.
We can do both, honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're kind of asking a different version of the same question in a way, because this is the thing that's really challenging, is that the ways in which you abandon yourself inevitably will show up for other people and with other people. Because if somebody really cares about you and is like paying attention to you, they're going to know you're not there. And if they don't care and they don't pay attention, then fuck them. They're eventually going to leave and fuck you over one way or another. Right? So here's the thing. When we abandon ourselves, which is part of disassociating, right? We leave all this space where any old thing can happen. And some of that puts you in danger. And some of that puts undue pressure on the other person to take care of you or to manage the relationship. And if that person's really healthy and well adjusted, eventually they're going to need more, right? And if they're not really healthy and well adjusted, that might work. That might be fine for you. And also, you might eventually feel like, what the fuck am I doing with this person? They're not good for me. They're not healthy. They're not well adjusted. And so what you and I and all of us cannot do is control other people. You cannot make someone healthier. You can't make them stay. You can't make them willing to love or be monogamous or whatever the fuck it is. But what you can do is take responsibility for your choices. So we're back to boundaries, right? We're back to boundaries. And again, it's really hard to have boundaries, to maintain your boundaries, which is really about accountability, right? When you're emotionally abandoning yourself. Because how do you know where you begin or end when you're not there? And so this is where, like, starting small and making those changes, and this is really hard because it's slow, right? But what happens is you start attracting different versions of your old pattern in people. They're different versions of the same shit, but they're different versions. Whenever that happens in your life, trust, you're making progress. What happens is you start to attract new patterns in your relationships, and you're like, oh, but it's the same shit. And then you're like, oh, I'm stuck. No, you are in the middle. It's like you're on the freeway. You haven't gotten there yet, but you're going, right? So when you start to attract a whole new fucking pattern where you're like, what is this whole new bullshit? You are doing great. That's when you're doing great, because new problems means you're activating out of a different part of yourself. No problems is real. It's unrealistic. New problems, better problems. That's the goal. You know what I mean? Okay. All right.
All right. So I think we could probably all ask you like endless questions, because we're just very grateful for your wisdom and your compassion. And but I think, we have a lot of different kinds of questions, and the questions coming from online are just so thoughtful and lovely, and I'm sorry we don't have time to get to all of them. But I think to close us out, a lot of folks have asked a variation on what are you hopeful for about 2025, even if that's in your personal life and not, the world.
That's a very nice question. It's also a dangerous question to ask a sun, moon, and rising in Capricorn. That's people ask me that question. I'm like, God damn it, I gotta think of something. No. My relationship to trees is something that I am hopeful for. I am expanding my relationship to trees. I am thinking a lot about down to trees and how trees talk to each other through their roots, and they like reach out, out. And I've always thought about trees, and I have a tendency to think about trees as these things that stand up. But actually, so much of their life is not about what's happening above ground. It's about what's happening underground. And that gives me a great deal of hope, because I think a lot of us feel the need to go underground right now on a lot of levels. And so I've been thinking about trees as something that gives me hope. That's going to be my heartfelt answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to let folks know that they can buy Jessica's book if they don't already have it. It is a beautiful book that helps us think through all of our relationships, not just our romantic ones, but our community relationships, our friendships. That is available here. It's also available online in our chat. You can click that. You can also support the space of Charis Books and Charis Circle. Charis Circle is a nonprofit. We do over 275 events a year. We are a secular community space. So if you're here for the first time and you want to make friends, or you don't know how to be with other people and you need a little help getting back in the swing of things, that's what we're here for. So if you want to support this space, you can do that. You can round up on purchase at the front, or you can just make a donation at the front. If you're online, you can click the teal button to donate to Charis Circle. We are primarily individually donor funded, and that means that we are accountable to y'all. It also means that we're able to keep your information private, and we don't take money from people that tell us what to do. I want to shout out the fact that we are having a mass queer trans immigrant wedding on the 19th, right before Inauguration Day. So if you want to marry your best friend or anybody else, you can do that with us on the 19th.
Amazing. Get married.
Get married. Get divorced. Whatever.
Divorced.
You know,
I was like, okay,
get divorced and then get married. We're not gonna judge. But we really want to just let folks know, if you want to just be here and witness it and just be part of our queer and trans joy, come join us. It's 10:30 on Sunday here at the store. It might be snowing. We don't really know. Weather is weird, but we're hopeful about that. So we invite you to come be part of our hope and joy on that day. In terms of everyone who's physically here, if you would like to get your book signed, Jessica is going to stay exactly where she is, and y'all will come to her in a chill, orderly fashion.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bodies in this space, which is lovely. But if you have not yet bought your book and you would like to do that, you may do that at the front. And to everybody watching online, can we give it up one more time for our online friends watching around the world? Thank you. And thank you. Let's give it up one more time for Jessica Lanyadoo. All right, y'all. Be safe out there. Thank you for being with us. We love you so much, and we'll see you next time.